Before we dive into this episode, I just want to let you know if you want to get access to episodes before anybody else, head on over to patreon.com/concerts that made us. And as a bonus, you'll get access to videos of some of the episodes and a host of other benefits. We've also teamed up with Band Builder Academy to offer you 10% off their membership. Details of both can be found in the show notes below.
Is everybody in? Is everybody in? The show is about to begin.
Welcome to the podcast, concerts that made us, interviews and stories, tales from the bus. We love taking you back to when it all went down, the greatest live shows and the cheering crowd sound. It's concerts, concerts that made us, concerts that made us.com.
This is Liaan from The Color Blue.
And this is Armando, and you are listening to the concerts that made us.
Liaan and Armando, you're very welcome to Concerts That Made Us.
Thanks for having us, man. We're very happy to be here.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed. Absolutely fantastic to be here. Thank you.
It's great to have you guys here now. I'm looking forward to getting some insights into your music and into the band. So you guys released your latest single, Love in Space, on May 12th. It has a great feel-good vibe. What can you tell us about it?
Well, I think when it comes to the music that we wrote for the new release, you know, Love in Space is the first song of a collection of songs that'll possibly be the third album, you know, in a couple of months. But we went in, and I mean, for me, it just felt good from the start. No one came in and said, "Oh, we're going to write this kind of song or that kind of song." We just got together in the studio and we decided to just jam. And Love in Space was the first one we actually played. It was the first song that we wrote in this new cycle, and it just felt right, you know, from my perspective. I don't know what Armando wants to contribute.
Yeah, I can certainly contribute to that as well. And yeah, just adding on to what Liaan's saying, you know, we've tried not to compartmentalize the sort of music we play or we don't. I think in terms of what we do of late, you'll notice that it is a little bit different to some of the other genres that we've done before. But that's because we're not trying to put it in a box and categorize it, but more on what we feel at a specific time. And in terms of the writing process that we're following at the moment is also one that I absolutely love and enjoy, in terms of the fact that we get into a jam environment where we telepathically really just feel one another. And that for me is a different way of coming up with the songs as we do. And I think this Love in Space is really just indicative of that.
Yeah. You mentioned the not being put in a box. The whole not sticking to the one genre thing, it was obviously a conscious decision then. Where does it come from? Is it kind of like to make it easier for you guys that you can just create whatever sort of music you want?
Yeah, very much so. I think all of us, we don't. I think all the songs you listen to, even if they come from a different place, you can still hear it's the Color Blue with Color Blue songs. There's still that Color Blue feel, but I don't think we've ever wanted to be an alternative band or a rock band or a pop band or a metal band or a grunge band or a punk band. We like elements, or blues band even, or jazz. We love elements of all these different kinds of music, but we don't want to say, right, we're going to sit down and we're going to write this kind of song. It's like Armando said, process is, if we all feel it and it works in a jam, then we create that song regardless of what it is, you know. And I think that's our DNA.
So can we expect some sort of like reggae or EDM like hit from you guys in the future?
Anything is possible, man. Anything is possible. But with this, I think just to elaborate a little bit more on that, this specific Love in Space feel and sound that's coming through now on the single, the collection of songs we've written. I mean, the next album is basically complete. And like I said, this is the first song in that collection. There's a feel that's in the same vein, and I really think it's a Color Blue sound that we've found on the third album that we're all very comfortable with, you know. So
Yeah, and I have to say, what I really like about your music is you don't just listen to it. It's like when you turn one of your songs on, a feeling kind of washes over you, and you're almost entranced by it. You know, for example, take your track African Sky. Like, as soon as that start playing, I start having images of, like, say, an African holiday and that being the soundtrack. How do you guys go about creating such music that connects so deeply with the listener?
Before Armando jumps in, when I think for me, I can only, like I said, it's the energy when we're playing. But for me, from a lyrical perspective and from a vocal melody perspective, I try and with every song, specifically on the new stuff, create a moment, and I think about that moment. Now, I'm so happy you're saying that feeling, and that's exactly what I want. I want the music just not. I want a song to capture a moment, and then it communicates a feeling that I might be feeling at that moment, that the band has given me. The music has given me that feeling, and then I try and communicate that lyrically to the listener. And by you saying that, it means it's working, and that's my thought process. And it really means that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing, and that's making the listener feel the music.
Yeah, absolutely. I can add to that. And I think looking at the, our previous album, The Light Switch, and if you look at the songs that we have there, I'm delighted that you mentioned African Sky, and you would notice that the genre of that particular song relative, to the other 10 in the album itself, there is quite a variation between some of the songs within that album. And the point here, and really delighted that you mentioned African Sky, is you'll notice that it's very different to the rest of the songs, of course, making up the 10 in that album. But the point is exactly what has been highlighted. It's that feeling. And that for us resonates quite a bit with us. The reason is that we're not writing songs for the sake of just putting some lyrics and some tune to try and make a song. I think what's very important for us, and that's how our songs are coming through, is that a different week and a different day within a different period of the year, we may be feeling different. And when we get into the studio and we get into our creative modes, because that's where how we write the songs, how we feel on those particular days and during the jam, and something that happens to resonate. A very important action that I would like to highlight, and Liaan is the one that we really thank for this, is that during some of those jams, the fact that we would get back, let's say a week or two later, to try and replicate that would be rather difficult, because we may not have that same feeling we felt on that day whilst we were jamming. But Liaan is able to go behind the desk and press the button and record just a bit of a jam, and from there we build it up. And the ultimate point I'm trying to make here is it's the feeling. If we don't feel the songs, if we don't feel passionate and try and get across that feeling, that emotion, then clearly the listeners would never be able to enjoy that either. So that's good to hear from you. Thank you.
No problem. I just hope you guys never go into the studio and have the worst moods ever, because I pity the listeners with what you'll create.
Listen, on the new collection of songs, there are a couple of songs that are very serious, and there were some tough times that we went through collectively in the last year or so, and I'd say some of the songs on there, look, if it starts in a negative spot, it always ends in a positive direction somewhere, but there's some songs that will be coming out over the next couple of months that are very real, and where those frustrating moments were also captured, and that's why I've never been so excited about a collection of music like I am currently. I feel like I'm 14 again and writing music for the first time, to be honest.
Yeah, I get you. And, the band was formed in 2014, but collectively you guys have 65 years of experience built up. Personally, for you guys, what has the journey been like so far?
I'll let Armando speak about George and himself, and then I'll speak of myself joining and Tim. So I don't know if Armando wants to just take that from the beginning.
Yeah, I'll kick off on this one. I think that I'm probably the youngest in the band. Nudge, nudge. Meaning that I've obviously been involved in so has Liaan and some of the guys been involved in other bands, of course, before. But having said that, though, when we come together, what makes this diverse and for me, it's actually quite special within this particular band, is that we came together after an organized tribute to a very good friend of ours that unfortunately passed on. And we came together as a bunch of musicians. I think there must have been about 30 or 40 of us that came together for this tribute. And George and I were, in fact, in the band, the prior band that we lost a band member. And during that tribute, we kind of met up with Liaan, and during that particular process itself, as well as with Tim, we just noticed amongst all other musicians that were present, we were obviously having a great jamming session and a tribute, and we just happened to have clicked in terms of that telepathic understanding, kind of knowing where we're going, and we really just it really just felt right, and I think from that point in time, it just gave me a second wave to continue doing some music. And the reason for it is that it got to a point in time where I honestly thought that I would hang up my drumsticks and really not play anymore. And just meeting up with Liaan and George and Timothy, and the fact that we are from a completely different age gap, when we put, for me, it's remarkable. It's like I said, I'm obviously the youngest, meaning the opposite of that. And if we look at Liaan, and then George and Timothy, we just from a different decade, if we can put it in that way. And when you put it all together, I think there's something special. And I think that's probably my own feeling here, is when we look back at the albums that we've recorded before, I think the diversity is starting to come through in that way. And I think we're able to kind of capture the differences that we as individuals bring to the band. Normally, bands would have individuals at similar age group. But if we look at our band, the Color Blue is really special in that regard, taking all the individuals into consideration and our different ages. And I think that brings something special. That's my input.
Yeah, just to echo what Armando said, I was in a hard rock metal band. I've been in bands since I was like 13, and I at that specific time that I met Armando and George, I was actually we were on a bit of hiatus. And I saw them play, and I actually went up to George and I said to him that, I love the way he plays bass, because he's such a unique bass player. But it's the synergy that him and Armando have together that really attracted me, And we started playing. 2014, we started playing, and just writing songs. I came out of a very difficult period where my wife passed away, and I always say that the Color Blue saved me. And in 2016, our sound was completed when Timothy officially joined the band. Like Armando said back at that reunion, that tribute show, Tim actually did play with us. And I've known Tim since he was like 10 years old. And then 2016, it came to fulfillment when Tim joined the band officially as the lead guitarist. And we've been the same since then, and just found our feet and our voice together.
Wow, I think the band just goes to prove that, no matter how dark life gets, almost, things will get better, and there is light at the end of the tunnel, really. Listening to you say your wife passed away, and then your other bandmate as well. Jeez.
Yeah, no, I always say the adversity that we've faced as a group of musicians, the Color Blue has gone through a lot of tough stuff, but we always seem to pull through. And I think it's our love for creating music together, and that it's more than just that. It's a family, and it's something very special to be part of, and something that I very strongly believe was always on the cards for all of us. It's just the way we ended up together. It's unique.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
At this stage, we'll give the listeners a sense of where you come from musically. So, if you can you guys remember your earliest musical memories?
For me, it was always, I grew up listening to Buddy Holly, and it was way before my dad loved that, so it was imprinted on me. It's Buddy Holly, Richie Valens, the Big Bopper, Eddie Cochran, and that old 50s vibe. My dad loved it, and that was pushed down on me. So I loved Richie Valens the most. I was walking around singing La Bamba. It's the reason I started playing guitar,
Yeah.
But and then from there, it just progressed to my earliest memory that I have is me wanting to be in a band and me wanting to play music. That's all I ever wanted to do, to be honest with you. Nothing else. I just wanted to play guitar, and I wanted to create the perfect song, And yeah, it just progressed. It just progressed from there, That's my earliest memories of that. Armando?
Yeah, on my side, I think the turning point for me was, the early 80s. Prior to that, I always had this passion for music. I don't know, there was just something that kind of kept on drawing me there. But the reason why I used the early 80s as, for me, as a milestone is because, having joined, or at least attended a high school that had a cadet band, with that passion, I clearly, drums interested me at the time, and I became a side drummer. And I think that was a very important part of, my music career back then, from the point of view that learning all those rudiments from, for military drumming, I think for me was a great, a great foundation. And that was a period where, I felt comfortable and I really wanted to play clearly. But then, of course, life continues in the sense that I was concentrating a lot more on my work career, and the music kind of was put a bit aside while I was concentrating on that. And then, of course, with the passion of music, fortunately got involved with bands where I could put a lot of my rudiments and my own style into, joining bands and bringing in my own flavor. And from there, it's always been a passion. So in prior bands, also released, different albums, like Liaan has with his other bands as well. So for me, the early 80s was a great influence. And of course, back in those days, there were quite a few genres that were pretty strong and solid at the time. There was the reggae stuff, and there was the new romantic stuff, and then there was obviously the rock stuff. And I just happened to have been one of those individuals that didn't just like reggae or just like neuro or just like rock, and because I just liked everything, and I really appreciated all types of music. I think those are the earlier recollections of memories related to the diversity of music. So I enjoyed going to a nightclub with dance music as much as I enjoyed heavy rock. So the genre is pretty broad. And I think from there, it was probably the seed that, looking back, fortunately, with a lot of other bands that I was involved with in the past and albums that we had recorded, I think what we have here is the Color Blue, even though it's in my latter years and not my earlier years. But it is, for me, what is very special. And I'm glad to be part of the Color Blue. As I'd said earlier on, I thought I'd gone through a phase where I would have hung up my drumsticks. But I think this was just a new wave of energy. And of course, since we got going, as you mentioned, from 2014, 2015, we also landed up having to deal with, as we all know, the COVID scenario, because prior to COVID, we, of course, were also fortunate to have been out there and doing a lot of gigs and big concerts within South Africa. And, those are moments you look back to. But COVID seems to have shaken things a bit. I think, that's me from, taking what has been a starting point to where we are now.
Yeah. And it's a good segue as well to my next question. Since you started the band, what has the local music scene been like where you're based, and how has it kind of changed over the years? Would you say it's got better or maybe worse?
I think your perspective of where you view this from could, influence the answer heavily. There's no doubt that it's become more difficult for bands to get their music out there in a live sense, because there are fewer venues that, with the pandemic, a lot of businesses closed, and it did affect the music scene. I mean, many bands that we played with, they went through very tough times, even us. I mean, we went through a very rough time, but I feel like we've made it through to the other side. I think if you focus completely, and this is completely up to you as a musician, if you want to be a touring band and you focus completely on playing as many shows as you can do that. You can make that living. But I feel there's fewer venues for that, and I also feel like people don't go out as much as they maybe it's still as a result of the pandemic or what happened then. Then maybe there's a fearfulness, but it's just my personal thought on that. But I think where I see things going now, we've got so many tools we didn't have, and I'm trying to look at it from a positive perspective where you need to use the technology. You need to use Spotify is not going away. iTunes isn't going away. I love nothing more than holding a album in my hands and reading the cover art. But the way people consume the music has changed. And you need to, if you want to be relevant, you need to evolve and move with those times. You need to embrace the tech to get because at the end of the day, you need to get your song out. You need to get your music out. So I don't think it's just good enough to go and play tons of club gigs and hope someone picks you up. I think there's much more to that. You have to have the right lyric video, the visualizer, the Spotify presence, the media. You really need to push that, the TikTok following even. So that's where my thinking is. But yeah, it has become more difficult for in the live sense. But I do think there's also more opportunities. I believe a good song, if you put good music out there and a good song, it will rise to the top, man. You just need to believe in it, and you just need to. What will happen will happen. You just need to give it the best shot to live.
Yeah, definitely. And you mentioned Spotify, Apple, and everything. It's not going away. How do you guys view then physical media? Because I kind of feel like nowadays bands can put out records, CDs, even tapes are making a comeback. But it's more so like they're putting it out as a collector's item as opposed to spreading. Yeah, exactly. As opposed to spreading their music.
Yeah, it's merchandise. I see it. If you got the LP and the CD signed and the LP with nice liner notes and even a tape for the nostalgia, it's merchandise, but it's not the main vehicle. You're not going to look at CD sales. You can even maybe ask more for that CD or that LP because it's a collectible. So yeah, absolutely. In that I completely believe. But when it comes to straight music distribution, I'm afraid you can only go that one way now, and you have to swim with the fishes in the sea.
Yeah, exactly. And as a concert goer, then, what concerts would you say have made you guys?
Well, look, a concert that I'll never forget, and the ones that we've been to. I mean, it's for me, it's just got to be Metallica, right? Metallica was one of those concerts that for me will be embedded in my mind. And you kind of look up at that stage and it just becomes an inspiration to all of us, especially if we play music. I feel that the fact that I'm still playing music now is because I love it and it needs to flow. And looking at those sort of concerts, it just brings all the energy that you almost say to yourself, yeah, that's why I do this. Whether whether I'll end up being in such a big stage or not becomes irrelevant, but the inspirational, you just can't take that away. It's just so inspiring. So for me, definitely was Metallica.
Yeah, I totally get that. I seen them back in 2019, and I don't think there'll ever be any other concert that'll top it. It's definitely up there.
Yeah. I've been fortunate enough to see Metallica. I saw them in 2007, and I saw them again in 2013, and both shows were absolutely incredible. They're great musicians, it's great showmanship, but shows that really I remember seeing U2 on this. I think it was the 360 World Tour, and that was life changing for me. I thought, I can't believe that a concert can sound that good, and look that good.
Yeah.
So that's something that I appreciate a lot. Also, the Red Hot Chili Peppers, also incredible band. Loved seeing them as well. But I have to go way back, actually, when I was young, very young. I remember my first concert I went to was, it was Roxette.
Right.
and I was like 12,
Yeah.
I might have been smaller. I was like 11, I think. And my aunt took me to go watch Roxette. They came to South Africa, and it was at Ellis Park in the stadium. And I remember I just watched that and I just thought, man, I want to be playing guitar on that stage. And I think that was the most formative for me, where I watched that and I thought, it's incredible. And I think the Springbok Mute Girls still opened for them, a very young Springbok Mute Girls band. And I was blown away. And from there, so I'd say that was the most formative one for me, was watching them. And then I would study as many I love watching live shows. I'll spend weekends just watching live shows of bands and trying to study what they do on stage, But that would be the one for me.
Yeah, it's not a bad one now. Pretty good, pretty good. Since you watch live ones, then you've obviously probably burnt out the tape on Freddie Mercury's live performance.
Now, one of my all-time heroes, someone I wish I could have seen live, but I never had that honor,
Yeah, yeah. And for any listeners that haven't caught one of your shows, what can they expect? Give them the full experience if you can.
We're extremely raw, lots of energy, lots of emotion, lots of passion. We leave nothing, in the dressing room. It's all on stage. If you're not tired afterwards, then you didn't give a good show. That's our motto. So we give it. We believe in what we play. We believe in what we portray. Doesn't matter if there's 10 people or 10,000 people. If they've gone through the trouble to see you, then you need to give them a show. So it's not just about delivering the music, but it's about delivering the show with the music, or making sure the crowd feels the energy. That's the way that we do it.
You got to add to that, because I think that's what really energizes us, is whether we are playing a 3-hour show or whether we played a 45-minute show. The energy that goes into either or is just everything we can possibly give. And I think we've become completely different from walking onto that stage than even 10 minutes before walking onto the stage. So for us, I think just looking out, and whether we see 10 people or whether we see a few thousand, it just the level of energy that we would radiate is kind of the same, because it's just such an honor to be able to be on that stage and to have anyone in front of the stage looking up at the band. You've just got to give them the best show ever. So we play from the heart. I think something that we're always very passionate about, and it becomes a collective readiness, if I may put it that way, before we walk on stage, is that we enter a new zone, and we do it with passion. We don't believe that getting up to do a show is from a technical, playing perspective only. If it's got no emotion, if it doesn't come from the heart, then we feel that we are not doing justice to those that take the time and the precious time to come out and check us out.
Yeah, yeah. And how do you guys work on your stage show then to, constantly improve it and make sure that it was better than the last?
I think we call it captain's practices, like in the sport. We view it very much the same as a rugby team. So we've got different kinds of practices. We're very fortunate to have the studio that my studio that I built over the years, and Armando and myself have kitted it out, and so we're very fortunate to record. But it's also a very large space, which lends itself to being a stage as well. Um, so what we'll do when we're gearing up for a show specifically, we will rehearse that show and the order that we're going to run that show in and the flow of the show. And we make sure that we don't think about the mechanics too much when we're on stage. It has to be, the muscle memory has to be there, and then you focus completely on the emotion and your performance. And that's what we try to do. What we also do a lot of is we film those performances that we do, and we watch them back, and we see what worked and what didn't work, and it's also good keeping everyone honest. And we also learn to not drink too much before gigs either.
Always a good idea.
Yeah. When you're young and you're going for it, everyone goes through that phase, and sometimes you can have a good gig, but I just think we try and really, we want to give that money's worth show.
Yeah, exactly. And out of all the gigs you guys have played, then, is there one that you maybe look back on in your mind and kind of revisit it as the most perfect gig you've played?
Oh, yeah, there's a couple. But one special show stands out for me, and that would have been in Margate. I think Armando will agree, but it wasn't for me. It wasn't. We played two shows that weekend. It was the SA Bike Week, and in Margate, and I think we played the evening show on the main stage, like on the beach. And it was, it was incredible. But the next afternoon, we were all so hungover, and we played the B stage, also to a packed house, a little bit further down, but also on the pier. And it was an afternoon show. It was, I think we played at 4:00 in the afternoon. And for me, that show was one of the most special shows, feeling wise, because we were all so tired, and it turned out to be an incredible show, a very emotional show. And I just remember looking at the crowd and looking at the ocean on the one side and thinking, this is it, man. This is why we do it.
Yeah, sounds like heaven almost.
It was.
I've got to add to that, because I think that for me, we've done many shows, but that particular one stands out for a number of reasons for me. Of course, it was a weekend, event. It wasn't just a show on one particular day, but it was pretty special from the point of view that, I happen to be a biker myself. And of course, being an event that was attended by a lot of bikers, it just meant a lot more for me from both sides, whether I was on stage or on the other side of the stage. So from that perspective alone, it became pretty special. And, it was also special for the reason that, I had a bunch of friends that were also bikers that, went out to that same venue, which is in the East Coast, of course, being, or rather the South Coast, the Southeast Coast. And there were a couple of some of the colleagues from the same bike club that I'm part of, that drove all the way from Joburg, or rode all the way from Joburg down to that particular show. So it had it was a lot more meaningful from the point of view of not just being a musician on stage, which is why we were there, but just the relevance of the event, the relevance of all the attendees, and the size of the event, and the amount of like Liaan said, we played on main stage plus the B stage. And for me, it really stands out, notwithstanding the fact that all the other shows that we've done, we apply the same passion, and we really, feel very passionate about being on stage and providing that same energy. But that particular one, from that point of view alone, happens to be a special one for me.
Yeah, that's very understandable, all right. And not to get too negative now, you can use any gig from any band you've played in, I'll be fair. Is there one that you consider maybe the worst experience you've had, and how did you deal with it?
There's, when you're playing lots of shows, there will be nights that things don't come together like they should, and there has been one or two that I've been off, or one of the other guys have been off, or the venue has just been off. But next time you come back, and that same venue would be great, So I think it's like everything else in life; it's a perspective thing. We've had them, and it's just part of it, and it's a month, and you learn from it, and you move forward, and you just get your head right, and you power on through. But we've been fortunate; we haven't really had blowout gigs or things like that. That we've been fortunate. We've had good shows, We've had good shows.
Yeah. And when you guys are on tour, then what kind of antics do you get up to backstage, or back at the hotel? Any wild partying, or are you guys very sensible kind of choir boys?
Armando is extremely sensible. He's
I keep them on their toes.
Look, there's probably, depending on who you ask, there'll be a couple of stories, but I think we've learned that if we are far from home and there is opportunity to braai and there is brandy, then it's going to be a long night, but always after the show, never before the show, So, there's been lots of fun. There's been lots of stories, but I can't out now, but one day we'll have a private chat.
Right.
Having said that, though, the one thing we can be very proud of, and I think because we try to be professional about it. So when we've, especially the bigger shows, the one good thing that I can say is that we'll play the show, but then we'll have a good time, within the band. So we will, retract, because by the time you walk off that stage, the energy levels are just so high. There's no way you can just get back to your hotel room if it happens to, and then just lie down and sleep. And we really entertain ourselves and really utilize that time as we've done before with getting along with other musicians and other bands that were part of the venue, and we use that time as special time to be able to interact with other musicians as we've done before, and we have a great time. But by the same token, we've always very, very mindful that we really try and keep it as professional as we can possibly do. At the same time, have some good time.
Yeah. And say you play the most perfect gig, like the one you mentioned, on a Saturday night. You wake up Sunday morning, it's quiet, it's peaceful, but it's kind of back to normal. You have the post-gig or the post-tour blues. How do you deal with that?
I can speak to that. I had a big problem with that. I really did. And I've learned, especially in 2019, I'll be very honest, it was very tough for me to come down. I can't speak for the other guys. They're not here, but I can only speak for myself that it was a very tough thing coming down from that emotional high. And you have to, it's a mental thing. You have to be mentally so strong. And in 2019, I really felt that, I sometimes say that the whole lockdown thing sort of extended my career, definitely, because it taught me to deal with that. It's always been a problem for me since I started, coming down after shows. you feel extremely anxious, and you can't wait for the next one. And if it doesn't come quick enough, you start getting very depressed. So it is definitely a thing. Hey, it's definitely a thing, and I'm very sensitive to that. Um, I'm an all-in kind of person, and it's very difficult. But I always say it extended my career. The last, the 2 years that we were effectively stuck at home, um, to mentally cope and deal with that. So I feel personally I can deal with that better now. But it's definitely a thing. It's definitely a thing.
Very interesting you asked that question. It really is, because it's the sort of emotions that we keep to ourselves. But like Liaan said, it perhaps I to a lesser extent than Liaan, but it is really difficult. It is something that consciously you have to deal with, because it's a reality. I just found it quite interesting that you asked that question, because it's so true. Coming off those gigs, and how do you get back to to your normal mindset is difficult.
Yeah. Well, it's something maybe 90% of the listeners or the audience in the crowd don't actually think about, but it is an important part of it, behind the scenes.
Very much so.
At your level, then, how do you guys approach finding gigs and touring?
Look, we for us at the moment, obviously we've been writing for a while, but so the process has now started again. We've got a wonderful agent in Devo. He finds us shows, and then if I come across shows, then obviously I'll say, hey man, we're going to throw our hat in the ring here. And then you'd also be approached by promoters that have worked with you in the past, if they know that you're on a gig cycle, because I believe it all work. You got a writing cycle, you got a recording cycle, and you got a gigging and touring cycle. So if they know that you're on the gigging cycle, then they'll contact you specifically with new stuff, and you go and you go and try and schedule it to make sure it's quality shows and that you'll get some mileage out of the show. More than anything else, you need the mileage,
Yeah, exactly. And say 30 years time, you guys are rocking the nursing home. You look back at your career. What do you hope your legacy will be?
Come on, Armando, you can tell us what your legacy is going to be.
For me, the special and special part of being able to be involved in the band and produce music, you produce content, you land up with, as we've done, looking back at these, albums that we have recorded. It gives me great pleasure to know that the legacy will be, those albums that are now in this digital domain, and it'll be there for a long time, hopefully, and especially in the digital domain, as we well know. Once it's there, it doesn't get deleted. And I just personally find that that's probably the beauty about this digital world we're in, as opposed to the physical from yesteryears, where you needed the tapes and the albums and all the rest of it. And I think the digital age also came about, where a lot of that music is converted to digital. And look what happens with a lot of the older bands. Had it only remained with the physical album or tape, the exposure would have been a lot less to the fortunate digital environment we find ourselves in, isn't it? I mean, my kids can listen, and they do, to all those bands that I enjoyed back in the 80s, where surely they chances of them going out and buying those albums in the physical state or tapes, that probably wouldn't have happened. The fact that this all exists in this digital era, I think for me, it's also a special way of maintaining the relevance, or at least the life of music. So for me, the legacy would be, and that's what gives me great happiness, is knowing that we've created this content, and this content is available in this digital domain. And the mere fact that it is there, it's a great legacy. Yeah, hopefully in years to come, it remains there and remains a lot easier accessible to those that wanted to know. Well, who was Armando? Who was Liaan? What is the color blue all about? It's all easily available at the fingertips for anybody, anywhere. Whether they're walking down the street on their mobile.
Yeah, I think for me, it's like a twofold thing where I always I don't want my name to die, and that's something I had in my head since I was a little boy. I didn't know that there was going to be an internet. I was little in a time before, there were, there was digital downloads, but I think we have created material that'll, and I've been part of that will live on, and my message will live on, and the feeling that I try to create. And then when I'm that old, secondly, the second part of that is I would like to, in some way, also leave a mark, not just a selfish mark for myself, but a mark on people who might have been inspired by our music, and people that I could have maybe helped to realize their dreams the way my musicians I listened to whilst growing up inspired me to move forward. So that would be important. I think that would be the proudest if someone had to come up to me and say, "You're one of the reasons I started playing music." That would be my ultimate achievement.
Yeah, definitely. That's the thing money can't buy, of course.
Yeah, absolutely.
And before we get into the last couple of questions, then, what are your future plans? As you mentioned earlier, there's more singles coming, and you also have a festival coming up, don't you?
Yeah. We got to look. It's all the energy is going into Love and Space at the moment, promoting that as best we can, and then to also promote it and to celebrate it. We are playing a series of shows locally. One of the big ones on the 26th of May in the East Rand is the Oppiland Fees, which is a weekend festival with some great South African artists. We'll be playing Love and Space there on the Friday night. It's the rock evening, and we'll be there. And then I think we're playing Youth Fest on the 16th of June, which is Youth Day here in South Africa. We'll be playing in the Ruderpoort on the 8th of July. And then we're doing Doors Open Air towards the end of September. So, and a couple of shows in between. Those are confirmed ones. And a couple of shows in between. All fest celebrating the new single. And then strewn into that same game plan, we've got another single lined up for later this year. It's already been recorded. And we'll push that out and do the same during 2024. And maybe towards the end of 2024, we'll release that third album, that collection of songs. Yeah. That's the plan. You have to have a plan.
Exactly. Plenty of stuff for listeners to look forward to. So
there's content, and absolutely there's enough content, but it's all good content as well. And it's basically the story of the last 3 years that we can start putting out in the next 2.
Yeah, we always open for good festivals and good shows. We're always open for that. And what we do is we obviously will also work around those in terms of the fact that if we're not very actively doing shows, we're writing. The one good thing to highlight, and I think we're very fortunate, going back to the initial discussion that we had about the tribute and how we got together. The one good thing that I think we are fortunate about is the 4 of us will get into the studio, and you are guaranteed that during the, and we're very fortunate about this, just purely as a warm-up before we would try and rehearse a set or so, guaranteed we will come up with almost a whole new tune in just a couple of minutes. And that is not something that is, very easy for some, we understand, and even in prior bands that I was in. But with our current band, guaranteed, you give us a couple of hours. If we're just having a rehearse, we're almost going to come up with a song for you. I think we're fortunate to be able to do that. And as long as those creativity juices just keep on flowing, whether we're doing big shows, which we're always open for, and if it's not very busy in that front, we continue writing.
Geez, that's crazy. I feel like if I said to you guys, right, you have a week, come up with a whole entire album, you'd be able to knock it out of the park.
That is for sure. But if we have the whole week, then we would need every day within the week, because strangely enough, our most creative moment, for some strange reason, right, Liaan? If I just think about it while even sharing this, is really when we just first get together and we are warming up. During that period of time, I think it's something that, I don't recall happening in any of the prior bands that I was with, and that for me is what's extremely special about us. Give us any day of the week, we'll get together. Guaranteed, we'll probably come up with a tune before we even start rehearsing the set.
If you could bottle that, you'd become a millionaire. You know, that instant spark.
That's why I'm trying to record it.
Yeah, in fact, thank you, Liaan, because a lot of the times I may mention we will get along with Jamie. We don't even know, and Liaan will take a walk and to the desk, and we're thinking he's just fine tuning some of the knobs there, but he ends up hitting the record button without us even knowing. Strange enough, at the end of the evening, maybe in the following practice, he plays back to us and realize, oh wow, if we had gotten back the following day or week, we may have not remembered some of those special moments. So Liaan's also got that great knack to go and hit the record button without us even knowing.
Brilliant. Right, we'll dive into the last couple of questions. So I feel like you might have answered this one already earlier on, but if you could see any performer from history, living or dead, in concert for one night only, who would it be?
I would have two, hey? I would say it would be definitely, I'd love to see Queen. And then I'd also, I'd pretty much give a kidney to see Nirvana as well, hey? So it would be between those two. It would be Queen and Nirvana would be the two mega groups I'd love to see.
There's no arguing with that. I think any rock fan would definitely pick those two.
Yeah, it's bands that changed the world forever.
Yeah, exactly.
In the modern era. So yeah, that's it for me.
Yeah, a funny little fact about Nirvana. Actually, I've said this ages ago on earlier episodes, but the night that Kurt Cobain died, he was supposed to be playing a concert in Ireland, which is crazy.
Yeah, incredible. Yeah, it's tragic.
Well, you know what? I'm just so always excited to be able to see any band, right? To be quite honest. But thinking back, especially in the era that I grew up, then there was always two bands that always just pulled me in. In fact, really was an influence in terms of my interest wanting to play. One is, of course, Dire Straits. So really never got the opportunity to see Dire Straits, but really, if I could see. Yeah, I get the opportunity to see that. For me, that would be great.
Yeah, that would be another good one. All right. Yeah. And this one is a weird one now. All right. If you had to spend 24 hours locked inside a room with any musician from history, who would it be?
Ooh. I would say Buddy Holly.
Good one.
For me.
Good one.
I'd say Buddy Holly for me.
And what would you hope to learn from Buddy?
The one thing about Buddy, people always remember he died when he was 22. Hey, so it's incredibly young. and what he amassed at that time. And this is a big statement, but I always believe they say that Elvis was the king of rock. I'm in the Buddy camp, where I think Buddy would have been the king of showmanship rock. Especially, I think music would have gone in a different direction completely. The guy knew how to market. He knew how to think outside the box, and he used the shock factor in a different way. He didn't have the sex appeal that Elvis had and relied on, but his songcraft, his musicality, and his perfectionism in recording. I mean, those days, I'm a huge fan of the science of recording. It's a huge love of mine, and I think the way he approached recording in those early days and the perfectionism he wanted out of it was incredible. So I would just like to pick that brain and just imagine what he could have done if he just lived, 5 years longer. He never got on that plane.
Yeah, exactly. Bit of an impossible question for you now, but the way, obviously, in the 70s, Elvis kind of went into the Las Vegas kind of era and became a parody of himself. How do you think the rest of Buddy Holly's career would have looked if he had lived?
I can't say. Just before, you remember he left the Crickets. They split up. It was such a stormy career, and he went solo effectively. But he was the star, if you put it that way, and he wanted to musically go into a more mature direction. But I think just the type of character he was, I think he would have become a huge record producer, to be honest with you. I honestly think he would have at some point ended up recording, producing, and writing for other people as well.
I was actually thinking the exact same. I was more so thinking maybe when he got to his 50s, 60s, he would have stepped back and just wrote songs for people.
Also, that's my exact feel with him. He was a level-headed dude. He understood music.
Yeah, true. And Armando?
Obviously being a drummer, then if I was stuck for 24 hours, I'm going to choose a drummer, right? So, there are so many greats out there, Steve Smith, from Journey, and Vinnie Colaiuta and the Chester Thompsons. I can go on and on, but one particular drummer that I would give everything to spend 24 hours with would be Dave Weckl. That would just be it for me.
Right, another good one. Yeah, and the final one. So, what song would appear on the soundtrack to your life?
Oof. Wow.
Keep the hardest for last.
I'd say soundtrack of my life. That's a difficult one. I can't just single out one, man. If it's one that I've written and we've done with the band, then it's tough. Maybe Angel Lane for me, hey.
Okay. Why so? What speaks to you about that one?
It's probably the most honest song that I wrote that right after the death of Amanda in 2013, and with the band we worked on that. We really play it live, but I think the orchestration and the message in it is a lifetime, and it's going through facing adversity and rising up and understanding that you can't change things, but you got to go with those things, and just hope that at the end of it all, at the end of the path, there's someone waiting, so that's it. That would be my soundtrack song for me.
Perfect. Has to be that one. So, and Armando?
For me, one of our songs, which we call "Promise Me You Won't Go Alone." I think, in as much as what Liaan's resonated with the prior song, this particular song perhaps resonates with me in a very similar way. So it's always a very emotional thing for me. But Promise Me Won't Go Alone. It's got to be it. Liaan, I think you probably would have guessed that, right?
Yeah, I actually thought of that. Yeah, when the question was asked. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
He knows me too well, huh? He knows me too well.
Perfect. So, listen, guys, genuinely, it's been one of the most interesting conversations I've had now. I've really enjoyed chatting with you. Thanks a million.
Thanks so much for having us, and we've enjoyed it immensely as well, eh? Do it anytime.
Indeed. Thank you very much. Really appreciate the time, and it was great. And looking forward to chat to you again.
Hey guys, I really hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please rate and review us on iTunes and Spotify. And if you're interested in signing up to Band Builder Academy, use the link in the show notes below and enter the code CONCERTS and you'll receive 10% off. So, until next time, keep rocking. Hey, what are you guys still doing here? The show is over. It's over. You can go home. Go on. We'll see you next time. We'll be here. Bye.